Companies are spending a lot of money. There's a huge investment in AI. You want to protect that investment and you want to be successful with that investment. And so by leaving AI governance go and not doing it with intention is putting then your investment at risk and your success at risk, whether it's a productivity gain, an efficiency gain, making fiduciary types of decisions. These are important pieces of information about your AI systems, how they're working, how they're moving your needle on your KPIs to help the board then make those important decisions and provide the kind of oversight that is a board responsibility.
What does AI and risk have to do with your work? We're going to dive in deep on this topic, and you're going to walk away with understanding why governance should be incorporated into everything you do with AI. Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I have the incredible opportunity to speak with leaders like today's guest and learn something new along with you. I love talking about AI, and that is the topic that we have today. My guest is Beth Grimm, and I can't wait for you to hear all about what we're going to talk about. I'm also the founder of Her C-Suite. We are a portfolio career company where women are in demand, driving the AI conversation, and we are also building what's next. Beth Grimm, our guest today, is an AI luminary in our newest program, Next to Lead AI. She is also a certified AI governance professional through the International Association of Privacy Professionals. And I know that you are going to understand more and think about how to use AI governance for growth, transformation, and risk, whether you're on a board, leading a company, or you have your own business. Let's get started now. Beth, I am so excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move today. Thanks for being on the show.
I am so thrilled to be here. You have no idea. It's such a pleasure.
Before we get started in all the details about the topic that we're going to explore, you've had a really interesting career journey that brought you into this moment of being an expert in governance and AI. And I'd love to understand, how did you get here?
Yeah, well, it's one of those journeys that I think if you had said to me 10, 15 years ago, this is where you'd be, I'd say you're crazy. But I had a long career in the life science and pharmaceutical industry. And my most recent role there was in quality and risk management. I'm a scientist by background, and that's how my career evolved. When I decided to go out on my own and share what I've learned and wisdom and knowledge, with AI being everywhere, surely there's a whole AI risk landscape and a whole even AI quality landscape. So I wanted to turn my attention there. So bring my background in quality and risk management and apply it to AI. AI is such an interesting field. It's changing all the time, as we know. And so the rules and the risks and all of that also keep changing. And it's so important because I want to enable people to be successful with AI. It's not going away. So let's protect our investments. Let's protect our rights and our privacy and all those things, but also reap the benefits of using artificial intelligence.
I think that's the key, is that balance. And it's so hard, and it feels like you're on a balance beam. I mean, every day I'm like, okay, what is coming at me? Am I going to be able to balance, or am I going to be falling off? And there's these tools. There's thousands of tools now. I think people always think the big five, right? Or four that you're using, from whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude AI. Those are the kind of the bigger LLMs. However, there's thousands and thousands of new ones emerging every day. And the thing that I think people don't realize is when it's free, they're pretty much tracking everything you're doing to be able to build their model. What does that look like? And why should people be thinking about that, especially in companies where they might have an employee who's, oh, I just found this latest thing and I'm going to put it on my computer. What do you think about that?
If the product is free, you're the product. That's really what it comes down to. So make sure keeping in mind that is so important. If you're not paying for it, then you're the product. And it's a challenge for companies because all these tools are available and all these startups, I mean, this is such fertile ground for startups as we're seeing coming up with different tools to solve different problems. So we have to remember that they're startups. And so we have to do our due diligence. And so for companies, it's so important to understand if you make it hard for people to do things, they'll find the easy way to do it. And that might be, we call it an unsanctioned use of AI, where proprietary or confidential information about your company is going into the free chat GBT to deliver an answer. And so it's a very challenging problem because it's like a hydra, or whack-a-mole. But if companies understand what's going on and understand how it works and understand the risks, then they're better equipped to manage that so that AI can be used in a responsible and ethical way.
One of the things I'm curious about is you see these large contracts that the big companies are having. Anthropic just announced with, surprisingly, Accenture. We talked about this in our office hours, but I also am curious because a lot of companies use Microsoft. They have the Microsoft suite, and so they default to Copilot. But head to head, and I'm not trying to say anything negative about any of them, but that could be one of the reasons that people are exploring externally because it doesn't have the same ease of use. That's what I would say. I tried to create my own GPT, or I think they don't call it a GPT in Microsoft. They call it agents, but it's really a GPT if you're familiar with that term. And it was very clunky, and I couldn't, at the end, I had it all set up, and then it just I could not implement it into, I was trying to make my own way of helping sort my email inboxes. I thought, okay, I'll use Copilot. Then my default is I'm going to go to ChatGPT, which is not as, depending on how you have it. So would you say that that's one of the reasons is that companies have that one big enterprise contract, but there's no AI tool that does everything?
I would say that, right? If it meets your needs, great. But if it doesn't, then people will look elsewhere to make their job easier and to be more productive and efficient. So that's a real risk. And that's something that companies have to consider. And again, it comes back to your use cases and why you want to employ AI as a tool. So Copilot, just again, as an example, might be great for those private chats, to get some answers, to use it as a research assistant, but it may not be the right tool for other applications for your business. And so I think when these companies want to sign these big contracts, they have to really know what they're looking to get out of it and examine their use cases, because that's what it really all comes back to is the use case.
Building on that use case, a lot of people think about setting up their own, whether it is an agent or a GPT, people are thinking, I'm just going to solve my problem without really identifying the problem first. So how should companies be thinking about that from a governance perspective? Because especially in healthcare or in a regulated industry like finance, law, there's no shortage of regulated industries. What should they be thinking about that problem solving first before even looking at, we've been talking about kind of the finish line, but before we get to the finish line, there's the steps in between.
That's a really great question. One of the approaches that I hear a lot from others in the AI field is to take that crawl, walk, run approach. So identify a few simple use cases where AI really could be a tool that could help you solve that one problem, and then employ it for that and look into that first, solve that, and then you can build on that, and then build your inventory of AI tools to address the different problems that you have. And you may have some platforms, you may have a certain platform. I'm thinking about my background in pharma. You may have a drug development platform that you use, but your platform in drug discovery might be different, and so on throughout, the different sectors of your particular industry. But if you take that crawl, walk, run approach, then it's a build on. And so then you can build your governance as well as you're building your inventory of AI tools. And that's the thing that's really important, is to have an inventory. You know exactly the tools you're using, what they're for, what their limitations are, what their capabilities, their resource requirements. it's easier to build that as you go rather than say, oh my gosh, now we have 10 different tools we're using. We have no idea who owns it, who's doing what, what's the maintenance, what's the, all of the upkeep and monitoring that's required to kind of rein that back in is way more difficult than if you build it as you go.
It makes me think about a topic we had just talked about right before this about people thinking that one person can learn it and then be responsible for it when really, if you're crawling, walking, and running, you need to have a team and you have to have a champion for each of those scenarios. Can you describe a little bit about what that might look like when someone is thrown into an unexpected, hey, we want you to be responsible, and maybe that's not a fit and you're sort of siloed into it?
Right. And I think that's a very common mistake because you need to have people who are interested in it, and it's a cross functional background. So, you'll have legal people, you'll have IT, you'll have a business rep, you might have HR, procurement, or whatever. But you need those people involved that have a genuine interest in doing it because if you don't have that background, like for me, it's a natural fit. So I'm all in on it because you know, I like to manage risk. But if someone is in a completely different discipline and they're being told that they need to take this on, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be great for motivation or morale. And they're not going to be an influencer to the others that they need to influence when you have a governance role. Because, it works better if people see why you need to do it. And so you need that champion that really believes in it and, has that interest. Just volunteering or nominating people to take those roles is a really heavy lift for them.
What was flashing through my mind is when I did trade shows, we used to have for the large shows at one of my clients, one of the big pharma clients, we'd have like 30 people in a room planning out this trade show. And that was before AI. This was before any of this is happening. And now I would imagine what you really need is to replicate that, where you had legal and you had regulatory and you had all these key stakeholders come together, whether it's monthly or regularly, to talk about these topics about how it impacts the business. So one of the things that boards are thinking about is growth, transformation, and risk. And we think about there's some champions who see it as growth and some see it as risk. And so, there's how should a board be thinking about really being mindful of governance when they think about AI?
One thing is the board really needs a certain level of AI literacy. So at a basic level or at a level that's appropriate for the particular industry, they understand how AI works, its limitations, its capabilities, and its risks. And so they have a clear-eyed view of what's going on in the company. They can understand to make decisions and to provide that governance. And again, it needs to be people who understand like why it's important because there's lots of risks, there's lots of things flying at boards and like you said, growth and transformation. And then they need to understand how AI governance will enable that growth and transformation and not be a blocker to innovation or a blocker to agility or any of those things. And so really driving that literacy piece is very important at the board level.
And also, there's a human oversight that I think companies are not really understanding the importance of it. So, even if you create your agents and you have all these, different pathways to get information, and I'll put in air quotes, save time, supposedly on the tasks or what have you, there still has to be oversight. For one thing, it is known to hallucinate. Now the new ChatGPT 5.2 came out yesterday, which I have noticed a slight increase of better dialogue, not 100%, but it is better. These updates are happening and you have to make those updates too as a human. You have to adjust. And so, in that lens, how should companies, leaders be thinking about that it's not a one and done? It's not like I'm going to just get this tool, I'm going to put it out to all the employees and then, they're going to use it.
Yeah, so important. It's not a set it and forget it by any means. And oversight is needed for a lot of different reasons. One is to provide that oversight in terms of, is it behaving as we want it to behave? Is it doing the things that we want it to do? Particularly if you're talking about agents and agents working together and making decisions and taking action, are the agents operating within the boundaries that we have set for it, or are they starting to go off and kind of do other things we didn't want them to do? So there's all of that, the model integrity and the integrity of the AI system that you have to keep an eye on and monitor. But then there's also at the user level, and this touches upon what we said about signing on to a big platform. Is it meeting the user's needs? Is it providing the the return on investment that you're looking for? And that piece is really important in terms of what are your KPIs? What's the needle you're trying to move? And then measuring it if you're moving it or not. And so that's another piece of it, is to be able to, for boards to be able to have that information, because a ton of money is being spent on AI. And, it's estimated that I've heard one economist say we would be in a recession right now if not for AI. I've heard another economist say AI is accounting for a third of US GDP. And so there's these huge investments that need to be protected. And so for boards to make those kind of fiduciary decisions, it's such a huge can be such a huge contributor that it's really important to not only keep the system integrity in mind, but also the users in mind as well. And if it's meeting their needs and giving the KPI movement that you want it to.
I think about Accenture. That's such a huge decision for 30,000 people to be adopting. I think it's 30, not 300,000, right? It's 30,000, I think was the number of consultants that are going to be asked to adopt Claude AI. And my curiosity is, well, what does that contract look like for flexibility if it's not meeting and not delivering on expectations with those KPIs? What is the flexibility when you are just not, maybe they did do a test. I hope they did. But my test in that particular one, I think I shared with you, it swore, it uses profanity. So there's a dark side to that one. And so I think there's all these things that we're just learning about, and we're so early on. It's hard to say with a stake in the ground, this is it. This is the one thing, like we mentioned earlier. What advice would you give to a leader who's faced with, all right, I have to implement, I don't know much about it. What advice do you tell them about how to really think differently?
It really does come back to why you want to use it. So instead of saying, I've been told we need to do AI, or I need to incorporate AI into our strategy, that's great, but how are you going to do that? What is the driving force for you to want to do that from a business point of view? So it really is, thinking about what those user cases would be, what your KPIs are that you want to move, and how AI will help move those KPIs. And in some cases, AI may not be the right solution. It may be part of a larger solution, but it's really getting back to those basics of why we want to use AI. And if there's a certain amount of productivity we're looking for, how is AI going to help that productivity? And how are we going to measure and ensure that we're making the gains that we want to be making?
It's so true. And I'm thinking about this recent study that I think came out this week from Microsoft about usage. They anonymized the 37 million people, I think, in using Copilot. And the number one thing that people were talking about was health. It wasn't work, it wasn't related to anything. And so I know we're going to have a panel that we're going to be talking about trust. And I think there's this, because you're not seeing the person, it's not a person, and you're just flow of consciousness, you're talking, but there is like either trust in a good way or trust, maybe you should be mindful. What are your thoughts on that?
So when it comes to AI, in my view, trust has a very specific definition. And there's specific criteria that are enumerated in different risk frameworks that specify what trust in AI looks like. and it's multifaceted. And again, some aspects may be higher weighted than other aspects, but it's not a mystery of what makes it trustworthy. And in the end, that's what we want all of our AI systems to be, is to be trustworthy. And I think in AI, is it the same in real life? Like trust is hard to gain, but it's really easy to lose. And so when we think of some of those headline, it's no wonder people can feel fearful about AI and about, are they going to lose their job, or is my data going to be leaked, or am I going to lose more privacy or whatever? Because we've seen enough untrustworthy systems, and that, feeds that fear. And so if we all agree and follow experts that have enumerated what this trustworthy AI is, then it can make things a lot more clear. I'm not going to say it's simple, or that it's not complex, but it's very clear in what constitutes that.
I am so excited about this panel. We're doing January 2nd, so it's coming out right after this episode. Everyone's going to be able to sign up and hear you and our panel talk about how trustworthy and how to assess the trust of AI. I can't wait for that. As you think about, we're just, at the end of the year, looking towards 2026 Q1, what are you most excited about?
So I'm most excited about all the lessons that we have been learning about AI over the course of the last 3 years. It seems like the benchmark is from the time ChatGPT launched in 2022. So now it's 3 years old. So we're 3 years old, even though AI has been around for a long time. And so let's just take those lessons and move forward so that next year, when MIT does a study and says, 80% of AI implementations fail or don't meet their ROI, that metric can be flipped around. And then we're really seeing those productivity and return on investment gains that is part of the AI promise, and do it in an ethical and responsible way. And so I'm excited that I know when I talk to people, people are coming around to this. We've been gaining enough experience to understand why governance is important and why risk is important. Risk management is important in this area, and it's all for the enablement and success of the technology. So that's what I'm really excited about.
I'm excited to have you in her C-suite and next to lead AI as one of our luminaries. If people want to find out more about you and all the amazing things you're doing for companies, where's the best place for them to find you?
The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. And I post regularly. I give thoughts. I want to share information. I love to talk to people about this topic. I'm a little bit of a nerd about it, but I'm so passionate about it because it's so important. And so I'm really willing to meet and talk with anybody that is at whatever point in their AI journey, and to help them ensure success. So please look me up on LinkedIn.
I'm so glad we had this conversation today. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I was thrilled to be here, and it's such a great conversation to have. And Natalie, I always enjoy talking with you.
Thank you for spending your time with Beth and me today. I love talking about AI. You're going to see a lot more of these topics in the new year. And what a way to end 2025 on a high note, talking about something that impacts all of us every day. I hope if you enjoyed this conversation, will you share it with a friend or colleague? Invite her to join us on January 2nd at our panel discussion about AI and assessing the risk and transformation, as well as how trustworthy is your AI. And if you found this helpful, rate and review the show. It's how people find us. Keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.